Hey everybody, welcome to Beer Guys Radio. Sorry we're a few minutes late here. We were trying to solve the world's problems. We failed, so instead we're going to drink some beer and record a podcast. So,
Heck yeah. Indeed.
yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. We greatly appreciate it. Always great to have you here. We're going to get going into the show. If you're drinking something awesome or even it's not awesome, let us know in the comments. Chime in on what we're talking about here. We'd love to hear from you and just post it up. We'll try our best to include it there. So, Stephen Pete, cheers, man. Always good to see you.
Cheers.
But with that said, let's jump into it. Welcome, everybody. This is Beer Guys Radio. We appreciate you coming and hanging out with us for some beer and conversations. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how's it going?
Not too bad. I am here enjoying some beer. It's I've been looking forward to it. I could use some beer. It's been a long week already.
You need
And it's
some
only
beer.
halfway done. How's
Yeah.
it going, Tim?
I'm fine. Yeah. So it's been cooler here lately. And
Yes.
even though my house is staying cold and I don't know why, and I'm trying to avoid, running the heat anymore because it's like 70, 80 outside, but my house didn't get the memo. So, I'll go out and run an errand or something like, man, it's nice out here. Why is it 32 degrees in the house? I don't know. But other than being cold, I'm all right. I'm all right. Yeah.
You've got to. I would be happy if that was the case. I have to run air conditioning most of the year because a little bit of sun on my windows and suddenly it's a sauna in here. I'd love the sound of that. That'd be nice if it were actually cool in here.
A little cooler in here.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, except something in the allergens have shifted this week, and all of a sudden my allergies are going haywire. So I just have late onset allergies this season, I guess.
That's terrible.
So,
That's terrible.
the drainage, the itchy eyes, the very explosive sneezing, all that in a bag of chips over here. So the
My
dad sneezing,
eyes-
right?
What's that, Nate?
It's a dad sneeze, right? When it's like a
The dad
decibel
sneeze.
like an eardrum blasting.
Like you shake your
sneeze.
head all around and your whole
Mhm.
body rattles and that. Yeah. I'm told I sneeze like a cat because when I sneeze,
You
it's
do.
like,
It's very adorable.
like 5 or 6 small sneezes in the rapid succession. I'm going to say it's a machine gun rather than a cat. I think that sounds better.
It's also the
machine gun
pitch.
sneeze.
Like you've got this like higher pitch when
Do
you
I?
sneeze.
Big dude with this high-pitched cat
hi-hat
sneeze over
like,
here.
It's like a delicate
Yeah.
sneeze.
Like that.
It's wonderful.
It's weird.
It's
just
the
who I
crazy
am.
thing is the actual pollen levels are down considerably.
Mhm.
I've been monitoring it because it's been the bane of my existence for quite some time. The craziness, and we're coming down we're coming down the backside of that mountain. It was pretty gnarly there for a few weeks. Like the very worst day was when we were out at a beer fest, and like I had one eyeball that was actually kind of puffy, and like I could tell. Like, this is so weird.
Whatever the selected pollen is in the air right now, it has my eyes it feels like someone's throwing sand in my eyes all the time. I'm taking hot showers and trying to rinse the eyeballs out, hold my eyelids open and just hold them on the shower head there. It's not helping though. It's not helping.
Wow. Okay.
I do what I can. Well, guys, let's jump into our beers of the week. Brian, what are you sipping on?
Yeah, one of you was drinking this last week of the week before, but I got into my pregame was Creature Comforts collaboration with Firestone Walker Peebo Pilsner, which combines the best elements of Pevo Pils from Firestone Walker and Bebo Pilsner from Creature Comforts. That was great. I really enjoyed that. I'd forgotten I had a few stuck back from whenever they were released. I think there's a few. You can find them out in the shops even still at this point in time. So really worth getting if you happen to see that around in your area. I'd recommend it. Great Pilsner. I am now working on an Old Nation Orange Creamsicle M43. I saw that out and about, and I'm like, well, I have to get that. Of course, it is a Creamsicle New England IPA, so that's kind of like what do they call them, like a smoothie IPA type of thing. But it's not what you would expect. It's hazy, but it's got no lactose, and it's noticeable in the flavor. It tastes like creamsicle, but it doesn't quite. It it yes, it does taste
Vanilla?
like, yeah, it
Is
tastes
that
like
did
there's
they use
something
a
a little
vanilla
vanilla.
to get the cream in there? If there's no lactose, I'm guessing that's probably it.
I'm guessing vanilla and natural orange and vanilla flavor. So these, you can tell
Okay.
there's something
Yeah.
that's added to it. I it seems like it's missing something. It might be the body from the lactose. Like there's a little something that's missing. You could tell, but because I really appreciate them making this without lactose, and it even says it on the can, which is why I picked up a 4-pack instead of like a single. I'm like, you know what, I'm getting all of those. So yeah. So I'm working on that. It's good. It's good. It's not my favorite from them, but it's nice. It's nice to have a beer like this where I'm not going to have to take a lactose digesting pill to go with it. And later on, if time permits, and maybe we're hanging out with the Patreon folks, I'm going to get into other half Mylar bags, which I've had before. It's a good beer. Did not realize it's as crazy as it is. It's a New England double IPA with Amarillo, Galaxy, Citra, Mosaic, and Eldorado hops, plus Citra and Mosaic lupulin powders, and more Galaxy on top of that.
Wow.
So it's nuts. And I never read the description of it before. I had it and I thought it was good. Now I'm really looking forward to drinking it. So yeah,
That's a lot of
definitely,
hops.
yeah, I want all the hops, and that pretty much is all of them. I think that's 90% of all the hops grown in the past 3 months are in that beer. So looking forward to that. So that's
Good
what I'm
stuff.
doing, Tim. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Nate, how about you? What's on the list?
All right. So currently in my glass, I've got on the lighter side from Halfway Crooks, a hometown favorite of ours, their VAR, which is a Czech Pilsner. And then on deck to round out the night, this was a beer that Tim, you and I both really enjoyed from that beer festival we went to. I managed to find the Wayfinder Winged Creatures, which is that West Coast IPA that honestly surprised both of us. As we all know, Tim is a West Coast IPA aficionado. He can't get enough of them to the point that
Love them.
he actually can't stand
Love.
them. And
Yeah.
so
It's
whenever he
crossed
gets one
over
in his
to hatred. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he loves it so much. It's he's got a love-hate relationship with West Coast IPAs. He loves to hate them. So with this one though, we were shocked, bewildered,
It's good. It's
stupefied
good.
even
What's
that
the ABV
Tim
on that, Nate? I was wondering because
oh goodness.
if I remember correctly, it wasn't technically a little beer. It was at Little Beer Fest, but I think that was one that kind of got a little contraband for the event
Six
there.
6.8%.
Okay. So yeah, over the little beer limit, but really good. And that's, I think we mentioned this right after the festival that it's got like that dank grapefruit, like
Mhm.
pine grapefruit dankness. And as long as there isn't too much bitterness in with that, I dig that profile quite a lot. So it's the bitterness of most of the West Coast ones that I've tried that gets me. But they did good with that one. That's nice.
I got to keep
Yeah,
an eye
so
out for that. I did like that one too,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Even I wouldn't. That's something that when we have a little beer fest here, it's cool because the way the crazy beer laws are, they have to get like a temporary distribution agreement to come to Georgia. And so we normally around the festivals, we get a few drops at retail because they're like, well, we're not just going to send like, a case of beer all the way over there. So, yeah, so it works out. Very cool. Well, guys, on deck for me, one from our old buddy that unfortunately brewery no longer open like many good breweries around here, but from Neutral Ground, from our buddy Stan, I have their Mannequin de Belgique, which is a Belgian triple. It's one I had. I think this may be the last beer that I have from Neutral
mm,
Ground, but decided, Belgian triples usually hold together pretty well. So I figured I'd see what was up, get into that.
Very nice.
Yeah. So
I
that's
think
what
I'm
I
out
did
of them
there.
too. I went through. Stan visited us. Was it last year? I don't actually remember. It's
About
been
a
a
year,
minute.
year or so ago.
And he
Yeah.
brought a few of his beers around the time I think he was closing
Yeah.
up shop, and I've gone through all of mine. I kept
Right.
the synesthesia can because it was brewed based
Right.
upon our saison recipe, and that was kind of cool for a while. It was a production beer, so it just seems right. But yeah, I'm fully consumed all of those. So
Fully
our
consumed. Yeah.
fully consumed RIP Neutral Ground.
Yeah. So, guys, a little bit of a side topic here, but Chat GPT. I think we all know of Chat GPT now and what it does. Brian, do you use it? Like, do you actually use Chat GPT or some form of AI?
I do actually. I do a fair amount.
Yeah.
I'm a coder. I write code for a living.
Mhm.
I definitely use it to handle things that I don't like doing. If you happen to write code and have to also write automated testing, it is very nice to be able to drop in a component or a function and say, hey, chat GPT, write me a unit test in this, an automated unit test using this technology, whatever it might happen to be. And man, that's nice. Like, cause you can
Yeah.
copy it, drop it into your code. And yeah, 9 times out of 10, it works. Sometimes it doesn't really test anything well, but if it generates a number of them, you can go through and like, okay, that's good, that's junk, throw that away. That one doesn't pass, but I know how to fix that. And then yeah, there you go. You've saved yourself a bunch of time doing the least enjoyable portion of what you do in a
Yeah.
day. So that's part of it. I've also used it for research purposes, for
Okay.
presentations and things like that. And yeah, so I use it a fair amount. If I
Yeah.
have a question about a lot, and technology is insane. It's always moving, growing, changing. And so like getting some insight into some new area of technology you don't understand, it's really good for that. And if you've got some old legacy spaghetti code, which I now have inherited some of that to deal with,
None of your
dropping that.
code like that though, right?
No, mine's
Never.
tight and beautiful, but
Tight code.
I actually use GitHub Copilot in my code, and I've had it explain this 1,000-line function. Tell me what it does. It does a pretty decent job of doing that. So, yeah,
That's
I
cool.
use it a
All
lot.
right.
I
Okay.
really I'm all
Yeah,
about
and
it. It's hopefully will not replace me, but anyway,
right.
yes,
Let's work together here, Chat
yes.
GPT. Let's keep it that. So in my day job as a recruiter, I use it a ton as well. The same thing with research and technology, with if I get a new job to work on, I don't know some of the terms that they're using. A note for anyone that uses this: it gets stuff wrong, especially a good bit with research related stuff. So validate what it tells you there. It's really good for stuff that's like structured, where it isn't, a research thing, but more of a functional kind of thing. And, I use it for reformatting job descriptions. I use it for, reformatting resumes, and I can even give it a job description and a resume, and it'll give me a summary of how well that candidate fits the job. So, just there's a lot of other things, but that's the shortest part of it. But the reason I bring it up is there is beery stuff that you can do with chat. And Nate, I didn't ask you, man, do you use chat G? I imagine with your job, there's not really a lot of call for it though, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, in my current job capacity of driving a truck and managing a warehouse, I don't really have an opportunity for
No
it. I
need
have
for
used it
AI, right?
for,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we don't have self-driving delivery trucks yet, so that's,
Yeah.
job security right there. I have used it to reformat my resume, but I kind of feel like a Luddite because I just haven't really explored the potential there for how it can enhance my life.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I've used it for research thing for both work and leisure activities and that. But on the beer side, so a few things that it can do, you can go in there and say something like, "I loved West Coast IPAs, and these are my favorite hops. What are some beers that I would like?" And it'll recommend you some beers. It may even say something like, "Oh, hey, do you favor more this way or that way?" So you can tell the more you use it, because I've been using it year and a half or so now, and it's advancing pretty well, and it's learning things like, for example, in my day job, if I put in a job description, it'll be like, hey, sure, I can reformat this to you. Would you like me to format it for an internal job database, a LinkedIn post, or maybe a Facebook post? I'm like, okay, so this thing's learning about recruiting. Like, it knows, not just following this, but it knows the different things. But with beer, yeah, so you can go in and do that. You can even use it to create, quote unquote. I'm going to say create, because, when it comes from AI, who knows exactly what you'll get. But, you could go in there and tell it, I want a uh, Russian Imperial Stout that's 10.5%, and I want to put walnuts and cocoa in it, and it'll put it together. But something I got to playing around with it this week that kind of became a little bit viral is this thing it does pictures in there too. It can generate pictures and action figure things. Brian, I shared a couple
Oh,
with you. Nate, have you
yes,
Mm,
seen
yeah,
any of these? The
I
AI
have, yeah.
action figure things. So,
yes.
I think someone went in and created one like your beer nerd, and he's got like cargo jorts on, and he's got his six
Yes.
pack and things there. But just some fun stuff you can do with it, and research and information on breweries is good, like historical breweries. And again, I'm going to say it gets stuff wrong because sometimes one example. I was looking up information on a cologne and asked it if it was a clone of another cologne. And it's like, yes, it's, da 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 da. Well, what it used for its source was a video where someone said, "Is this a clone of this?"
Mm.
And the video was saying, no, it was not. But Chat GPT said, yes, it was. So, guys, I'm going to pause just a second here. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I know I see my camera went out here. So let me see if we can, let's pause just a minute. Let's see if I can fix this without destroying everything here. Seems we had a little software crash.
Yeah, I see that.
All right, guys. I hate to do this because it's going to mess up the audio files. So give me just a second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All righty.
One moment. We just a little intermission. Like, go to the concession, get some popcorn. Yeah,
Refill your glass with a new frosty one.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a fan of what AI can do, but the thing that people have to keep in mind, and as long as we're doing this, we'll just kind of riff on it. But it's a prediction engine. It's really it's a language model, so it's predicting the text that you would expect it would most expect to see. So it's an average of things out there. So if it's trained on other things and it's bad information, it'll just that's an average like that. It might say the wrong thing at that point in time. So you don't know. I had it tell me about myself. I'm like, go out there and give me a little bio of myself, like thinking, oh, maybe I could use it for a resume or something like that. Yeah, it said it was a famous author. I think that was me that did that. That might have been Tim. I don't remember. Anyway, it happened to somebody where it said, yeah, there's a famous author. I'm like, well, that's neat. I really would love to be, but I'm not. So that's a hallucination. So you have to watch out for that. It is just like a gamble. It's really using the odds to predict the next word it uses. So it's amazing what it can do, but you have to realize like it's just kind of an average of all the things it's ever seen said. So when you think about it that way, I'm like, sometimes it's going to get it wrong and sometimes it's going to get it really weird and wrong. So that's why we see pictures generated with 6 fingers for some reason all the time.
So very wrong.
Yeah.
It is getting better, and it's getting better quickly. So
yes,
we'll see goes on. Okay. All right. Let's find a segue here. All right, guys, let's pause for a second. So have a break. Yeah, overall, the AI stuff it's fun to mess with now, and there's definitely some practical applications for it. But if you use it, like I said, for research and information, you got to be careful because it's going to lie to you. It'll
for
definitely
sure.
lie.
Hallucinations are a thing.
Yeah, I've called it out on a lie, and it'll say, "Oh, you're right, I made a mistake," and I'll be like, "Are you sure?" You're like, "Wait a minute, no." It'll just keep flip flopping back and forth.
It will.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy there.
Well, because it predicts the what you would expect from somebody calling you out is to apologize and correct yourself. Like that may not be true. You might be right, but it doesn't know. That's not what you would, on average, expect to see. So the average response is to acknowledge that you're wrong and come up with a different answer, even when you're right. Yes.
It's like, hey man, you gotta make sure you know what you stand on there, Chat GPT.
Exactly.
So all right. Well, guys, moving along with our fun news stories this week. So the Brewers Association put out their annual industry stats, something we always enjoy seeing, kind of a pulse check on how the industry did the previous year. It's not dead, but it's not doing great. Some information there. But Brian, I think you dug down pretty deep into these stats, some information on top breweries, overall sales volume, and kind of how things are looking.
Yes, definitely. And with the help of Brewbound, I've got to give them a lot of credit. They do a good job of breaking all this down.
Absolutely.
And I may or may not have used AI to help me additionally break it down to make it faster to digest. But anyway, according to the Brewers Association's annual report, craft beer production was down 4% in 2024. So all these stats will be based on what happened in 2024 because that's what we have. But despite the production numbers being down, craft beer's market share held steady at 13.3%, in part because the overall U.S. beer market's numbers also fell by 1.2%. So we maintained our size of the pie, our slice of the pie, in proportion with the size of the industry as it shrunk. So the retail dollar value of craft beer increased 3%. So that's up. Our actual money coming in is up year over year to around 28.9 billion, driven by price increases and on-site sales. We mentioned on-site sales being a thing, and it still is. Craft beer represents 24.7% of the total beer market in terms of retail dollar sales. So we're 13.3% in terms of volume and 24.7% in terms of dollars. So that's actually kind of good for craft beer. Not as amazing as it could be, but it's good. The total number of U.S. craft breweries decreased to 9,612 in 2024. And the brewery total, if you include non-craft beer, was 9,680. So it's a difference of 68 non-craft brewers that make up the numbers. Brewery closures, which were 501, outpaced openings, which are 434 for the first time since 2005. So it's crazy. 500 closed, but still 434 open. So we're still having people open breweries, which is, I like seeing that. I don't know how well it's going to work out for them, but I do like seeing the optimism, and I like to see the new ideas and the new blood involved. Jobs in the craft beer industry increased 3%, also a good sign. Like there's some negative in terms of sales, but there's a lot of really good positive signs here. So the total number of jobs now is 197,112. That's helped by the growth of hospitality focused models like tap rooms and brew pubs. So part of the big stats, you were going to say something, Tim? Look like you're about to.
No, I was just saying there, kind of thinking as you're talking about this, that back in our day, Brian, you'd have a brewery in an industrial area and people would come sample your beer, but that was it. That was really all that's going on there. But now breweries they're going to have restaurants, they're going to have other stuff going on. So it makes sense they would need more employees than, back then, basically your brewer would brew the beer and then he could serve it to you when you came through on the weekend, and they may have one person there. But so it makes sense. I was just thinking that made sense because of the way they're structured these days.
Yeah, and you'll definitely see when with some of the closures that we talk about, a lot of times the facilities will close, but the actual tap rooms will stay open. So
right.
they maintain that the service portion of it, the hospitality portion of it, that requires people. That's people interfacing between you and the beers. So that's a priority right now, which is good for jobs. So part of the big thing with the annual stats is the top 50. We don't have time to go through all the top 50, so we'll go through the top 10. The top 3 remained the same. Yuengling was at number 1, Boston Beer Company was at number 2, and Sierra Nevada was at number 3. Tilray brands jumped to number 4 due to their acquisition of Hop Valley, Revolver, Atwater, and Terrapin. I'm not even sure that's the whole amount. I think there was a few more beyond that, but Duvel Mortgett, and I'm never sure if I'm saying that right. That's Firestone Walker, Boulevard, and Ommegang. They're at number 5, and Gambrinus, Shiner, and Trumer are at number 6. Each one of those dropped a point, but they're still in the top 10. FX Matt, which is Flying Bison, Flying Dog, Saranac, and Utica Club, jumped 6 spots. So they made a huge leap to number 7. Athletic Brewing is at number 8. They moved up 2 spots from 10. And Brooklyn Brewery is at number 9. They dropped 1 spot. Monster, which is as you probably know, Cigar City, Oscar Blues, the Bellum, Perrin, Squatters, Wasatch, they dropped 1 spot to number 10. So it's not going too well for them, but they're still in the top 10. Yes, Tim.
I got to say, man, this is a disappointing top 10. And with a few exceptions there. I mean, you look at 1, 2, and 3, you got Boston Beer, Sierra Nevada, and Yuengling. All right, those guys are OGs. I'll give that to them. But then you go down the chain from there and you got Tilray, Duvel Mortgott, Gambrinus, Monster. It just feels dirty to me that these folks doing this are making the list of top craft breweries, and that several of these, the only way they got in there is just by buying up the other breweries there. So, I'd rather look a little further down at who's really, really doing it there, because you have the money to buy a bunch of breweries, but take a look at these. Take a look at what Tilray's doing to the brands they've acquired. I mean, we just hear
True.
left and right about them closing things out. So that's disappointing. But Athletic, how cool to see them moving up the list the way they are.
to
So,
number 8 now.
and again, guys, we've said this many times, we got to know the guys over there a little bit, throughout the years. And I think we had them on the show really when they were brand new, when they were really just hitting the scene was the first time they were on the show. And, we've just seen them grow. And again, something I think about there, and I won't go too far off on a tangent here, but anytime you see people talking about NA beer, especially people that are kind of the beer media, beer writer type of people, they really kind of poo-poo NA beer for the gains that it's making. And they're like, well, it's never going to be, it's never going to have X% of the market. I'm like, I don't think we need to look at how much of the overall beer market is non-alcoholic beer taken, because of course it's never going to have 25% or anything. But if this thing is 1 to 3% of NA beers, and one of these NA breweries is showing up at number 8 on the largest craft breweries, that's impressive. So I think you're looking at the segment in and of itself, the growth of NA beer rather than how much of beer share it's taking is a pretty impressive growth.
I agree. I think that they're still working on just approaching the 1% of the overall market share, but that 1%'s a lot of money.
That's a lot of liquid. Yeah, sure.
It takes a lot to get to that 1%. I mean,
yep.
The craft beer has been booming for how many years, and it's at 13.3%. Like getting just to that point, like took years, decade or more to get to that point. Like making 1% in a couple of years that's pretty significant.
Well, if you look at it, craft brewing in the U.S. is really less than 50 years old, 40-ish or something. So late 70s there, and really the early 80s before we started seeing any true what we would call craft, or back then microbreweries. So pretty young industry altogether, but we are talking 4 or 5 decades to get to the point that they've got to. I haven't accomplished that in my 5 decades. I'll tell you that. So.
That's true. And I think there's a lot because it's still, it wasn't taken very seriously. Like it existed for like a long time, but not taken very seriously. And not a lot was invested in terms of upping the quality. There's a lot of like potential innovations that are probably going to happen that make it better and better. So we could see it may make it from 1 to 5% at some point in the future. And that would be just massive. Like I know it's like, 5%, but dude, that is a lot of money, a lot of liquid, a lot of, everything. So it's kind of a big deal.
I'd like to have the income of 5% of the, I'll take the 1%. You know what? I'm not going to be 0.5%. I'm not going to be greedy here, man. I'm not going to be greedy here.
0.5% of that. Yeah.
Right. No doubt. But
so
Brian,
anyway,
I think you were getting into the ones that kind of fell off the list.
Yeah,
right?
So they noted some ones that fell off the Brewers Association's top 50 this year. So one of them, Artisanal Brewing Ventures, aka ABV, that's Victory, Southern Tier, and 6 Point. They dropped off, but it's not because of their sales numbers. They requested their production data not be published. I'm guessing their production data wasn't really great, but they may have reasons for not publishing that. Maybe
not
they were retooling things or something like that. So they're not in the list at all. I think there was speculation that they might have been number 11 had they been published, but it's hard to know. Minhas, which I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I recognize the name, but I don't know the beer. They were number 29 and they dropped off the list. Kings and Convicts / Ballast Point. They were at number 30 in 2023 and they are off the list in 2024. Montucky Cold Snacks, which had a moment where they seemed to be everywhere. They were number 40 and they are off the list as of last year. Lost Coast has dropped from 42 to at some point beyond the 50s. U.S. Beverage, which is Uinta and St. Lawrence, they were number 45 in 2023, and I don't know where they're at now. All of these are on some numerical thing, but they don't keep track of them very closely after 50. Coronado was number 48, they're off. And a local one that we're familiar with, Indie Brew, Scofflaw and Bearded Iris, which broke in at number 50 in 2023. They have fallen off the list as well. I'm not sure where they landed, but it was interesting that they were there. But I guess it's the partnership isn't killing it for them. But so like the top 10, Tim mentioned, like a lot of the top 10 right now, it's disappointing because it's roll-ups of a lot of former. Now they're still considered craft, but they were more crafty when they were separate. But a lot of roll-up companies, which is a conglomeration of craft breweries, it would be cool to see them broken out like by individual breweries that haven't been rolled up. But if you open it up to everybody who makes beer, including the macros, the top 10, and I believe the top 7 of the top 10 have not changed. Number 1 is Anheuser-Busch InBev. 2 is Molson Coors. 3 is Constellation, 4 is Heineken, 5 is Pabst Brewing, 6 is Diageo, 7 is Yingling, 8, which I think is new, is Kirin Lion, which is New Belgium and Bell's together. For some reason, those two are not considered. That's probably the Kirin tie-in. They're not considered craft anymore. Fifco, which is one that's I see occasionally, and I've always wondered what that is. They're at number 9, Fifco USA. That's Dundee, Genesee, Labatt Lime. I guess just Lime. I don't know. That's what was listed.
Okay.
McTarnahan's, which is an old Portland, Oregon brand that I used to love. Magic Hat and Pyramid are all part of Fifco USA, and Boston Beers at number 10, which is of course is Sam Adams, and now Dogfish had lately. So that is the top 10 when you just go with everybody, including the macros. So
interesting list there, man. Seeing Ballast Point just steadily drop since they were acquired. $1 billion sell, and now they're not even in the top 50. And from number 30, I mean, they were fairly close to the middle of that.
Yeah, that's dropping like a rock. I mean, it's unfortunate because I really used to like. I was excited when I saw them initially hit our area. I'm like, man, this stuff is great. Grapefruit Sculpin, and I had a bunch of other Ballast Point beers. They had some fun stouts, and anyway, yeah, man.
But here we are.
Yes.
Well, Brian, before we move along, how about we give a shout out to our sponsor?
Yeah, so good news, people. And after our little conversation earlier, maybe I'm not right about this, but I think we've made it through the worst of pollen season. If you're not Mo Mike Nate, probably not Tim either. My eyes are a little itchy too, but I think we're through it mostly. And the weather looks good this weekend. It's been a little cooler. We're not in the 90s yet. So all signs point to patio beers if your eyes aren't inflamed. And there's no better place for patio beers than, you guessed it, Truck and Tap. So let's take a look at the tap list and pick a good one for hanging out in the patio and enjoying the weather. And here are a few recommendations. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Green Bench's Alice. It's a foeder fermented, wine barrel aged golden sour, which is a bit of a tongue twister for me, whatever that word is. Yeah, it ties the tongue. Anyway, it has an intense natural stone fruit aroma and flavor, so I read, that is enhanced by a medium tart sourness. It sounds delightful. I would like to try that. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Creature Comforts We Love LA IPA. If the name sounds familiar, this is the big national collaboration beer that goes to benefit the wildfire relief in California, specifically Los Angeles, which I think is where most of it was centered. It's a West Coast IPA with Simcoe, Mosaic, Idaho 7, and Sultana hops. I'm a fan of a good beer for a good cause, and it's Creature Comforts. They're going to do a good job with this, so I'm looking forward to drinking that one. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Other Half's Gouda IPA. This hazy double IPA with Citra, Strata, Comet, and Eclipse hops might be a little bit big for hanging out in the patio in warmish weather, but hear me out on this one. The name is funny, and I like Other Half IPAs. Okay, that's my argument. Anyway, but I won't hold it against you if you pick one of the other lighter options available. There are also like 3 lagers and two fruited kettle sours to choose from at the Truck and Tap Alpharetta as of the last time I checked it. So you got options, but get the Other Half one. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with 3 Taverns Lord Grey. It's a fruited kettle sour made with Earl Grey tea and lemon. It's bright, citrusy, herbal, and tart. It sounds like a great patio beer to me, and a little classy too. Like you might need a monocle and maybe a crumpet while you drink that one.
Monocle and a crumpet. Okay,
maybe. All right. Top hat if you got one.
But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there you have it for my beer picks for the week. I encourage you to take a look at the tap list at truckandtap.com. They've been putting a lot of cool beers from breweries you don't often see in these parts. Probably left over from the festival that we went to a little while ago. But they also have the new ones from your favorite local breweries. So you can drink the best new local stuff as well. I've been talking about the lighter, refreshing beers lately, but if you're in the mood for bigger, richer, and boozier beers, they've got those too. There are definitely some big ones, some heavy hitters on all of their tap lists. So head over to truckandtap.com and find the right beer for you. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Good stuff. Thank you, Truck and Tap. We appreciate you. Well, Brian, big. So I wonder if this next chunk of news is going to affect. We just heard Monster Brewing made
Yes.
that top 50 list, and then that was for 2024. But they just announced they're actually closing a couple of fairly well established and well known breweries, or brewery, a couple brands, right?
So what's happening is they're closing a facility. So they're not actually. Let me explain. So Monster Brewing's Salt Lake City brewery and tap room and retail location will cease operations on May 27th. The company decided not to renew a lease on the property, which was responsible for brewing Wasatch and Squatters beers. But that's not Wasatch and Squatters exactly closing. Both of these brands have been Utah-based since they began, but they will now be produced by other facilities in the company's network, which means somewhere outside of Utah, which might mean something to people from Utah. The Squatters and Wasatch portfolios will remain in distribution across the existing 15-state footprint, so the availability of these beers is not expected to change. I don't know if the beers will taste the same being produced elsewhere. Who knows? But the closure will result in the loss of 25 jobs. The affected employees will be offered, a separation package and encouraged to go apply for other positions in the company, which will probably mean that they'll have to move to do that. But this closure is part of a trend that we've seen for Monster following they shuttered facilities in Austin for Oscar Blues and the one in Dallas for Deep Ellum. And they completely screwed with the Cigar City Tampa location and turned it into an R&D hub. And got rid of the brewer. Like that became a whole thing. So Monster's key remaining production hubs are now Oscar Blues breweries in Colorado and North Carolina. Those aren't the only spots they brew at, but those are the big spots that they do it. Wasatch, which was founded in 1986, and Squatters, which was founded in 1989, were some of Utah's first craft breweries. And those two merged back in 2002 before they joined Canarchy in 2017, which, of course, was acquired by Monster in 2022. So they're not going away, but they don't have any actual direct physical connection to Utah anymore. So if that means something to you as somebody who perhaps lives in Utah or is from Utah, my condolences. So
yeah, and we know that kind of thing does hurt the locals. I mean, we've had it happen here with our breweries before, and it's just not quite the same,
It's not.
No, but so bummer news there. We'll see how that impacts everything. But Brian, these another one. Let's just keep the hits coming there. So another one that high place up there on the top 50, but Tilray is closing down a brewery as well.
Yes. Tilray will be ceasing all operations at the Hop Valley Brewing Facility in Eugene, Oregon by July. So much like the previous story, production of Hop Valley beers will be handled by other facilities in the Tilray network. This is cost cutting. I think that their actual volume of sales may not change very much. I'm not sure. That'll probably mean that Hop Valley beers will be produced by 10 Barrel Brewing in Bend and Widmer Brothers Brewing in Portland. So it sounds like the availability of the Hop Valley beer will probably be roughly the same as what it currently is. And I don't recall, that might be 13 or some odd states or 12. Don't remember the exact figure on that, but closure will result in layoffs for the entire operations team around that Eugene brewery. And there'll be some administrative folks and marketing people that will either be let go of or have already been let go of. On the other hand, Hop Valley's original brew pub in Springfield and their tap room in Eugene and their satellite tap room in Portland, all of those are staying open. So they're going to maintain those. They're just getting rid of the actual brewing facility. So they're consolidating the brewing basically and getting rid of the staff that was responsible for making the beers. On an interesting note in this article, Tilray is working on reopening the Widmer Brothers tap room in Portland. And I mentioned that because I'm from Portland originally, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Widmer's. And yeah, it's kind of neat to hear that again. I have no idea what form that'll take, and I barely remember the place to begin with, but that's kind of cool to hear. But Anyway, Hot Valley Brewing, just some historical information. They were founded in 2009 and sold to Molson Coors in 2016, and they were acquired by Tilray Brands in 2024. So, yeah, that's a lot of these places have switched hands a few times at this point. Tim, you are muted.
It's crazy to buy them late in 2024 and then get here in early 2025. They're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to shut you down there. We're just
we
going to go
bought
ahead
you
and close
just
you.
in time
Like,
to shut you down.
What are you doing to us, Tilray? Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy
10 Barrel
stuff, man.
had a similar thing going on not long after they bought 10 Barrel. I think they got rid of all of the whole R&D brewing team for 10 Barrel, and they were Tilray was heralded as kind of like a savior coming in, and Tilray's like, yeah, you know what, you guys are redundant. We've got you covered with other breweries. I'm like, wait, what? So
this was something that years and years and years ago, and I don't hear as much chatter on it lately when it happens. It used to be, pretty deep. Maybe it's the overall change in kind of the vibe of the industry or what have you. But it used to be pretty big news that when someone, when a brewery was purchased by a corporation or by big beer, there was always people saying, hey, y'all, look, watch out for this. This isn't a good thing, and, blogs were big, good beer hunting at the time. They would always have big pieces written up. A lot of big brewers and stuff did things there. You don't hear about it as much now, but this is all the stuff that was warned about, that it would change the way craft beer looks. And now we've got all these big companies on the quote unquote top 50 of craft beer. And we've got, all these closures, and it's just every week that we're hearing about it now, one or two that's closing down. So this is what was warned about a decade ago, that this is what would happen there when all these breweries were being bought up by big beer or other corporations. That, when you consolidate like that just happens. You have redundancies, and of course with Wasatch and Squatters, if they can handle the capacity to brew that beer at their other facilities, then as a corporation, I mean, if you look at it as a corporation, it just doesn't make sense for them to spend the money to keep an entire other facility open there. Because the big thing with these companies that you'll never get with a craft brewer, that someone has a passion for the beer, the people, and all of that. And a corporation, especially when you're a multinational corporation with all of these companies under there are people looking at numbers that probably know very little about the actual product there at all. They just know what it looks like, on the balance sheets. And that's where decisions are being made on these kinds of things. So there's not an iota of personality or heart or anything in these decisions. So
that is true. And for a long time, when craft beer was absolutely printing money, and you could open up a brewery, any old place, and people would flock to your door. When you got bought by the big guy, it would help you grow and all blah 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 blah. Like everything was good. Well, as long as you're printing money, like you're a cash machine, they're not going to mess with that.
Sure,
here's where it gets tight and things aren't amazing. That's where the sweat equity, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it, they don't have that. I'm like, oh, this asset's no longer performing. Let's trim it down to get it to a point where it's not losing money or we're still profitable. And it's the bad times is when you got to talk about. Was being bought out during the good times and looking around and seeing how they've handled other things. That's not going to tell you what you need to know. It's what they do when times turn down, which we haven't seen. So you can understand people that like, we never saw this. We thought craft beer was going to go to the moon. Like it would be 150% sales or something like that forever. Like, no, it just doesn't work that way. We're in a mature market is what the thing is. So,
yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, as craft beer drinkers, we have choices out the wazoo now.
Yes.
You can go anywhere and have several great choices. Any restaurant you go to is going to have at least a couple decent craft beers on the menu. If you go to a beer focused place, you're going to have, just a huge amount of choices. So it's, I mean, as far as being a beer drinker, it's a bummer to hear all this news, but you can still throw a rock from most locations in the US and hit a brewery, So
It's true.
it's pros and cons, man. Pros and cons to everything.
If you make good beer, there's still a lot of opportunity out there. I think there's still like a lot of places that don't like you said, we could throw a rock and hit a craft brewery here in Atlanta, but there's other parts of it, Georgia, where
Sure.
you can't
Yeah.
do that. And there's an opportunity there if you produce a good product at a good price and you're good to your environment, your people
Community.
around you.
Yeah.
If you're good for them, you absolutely can kill it. You can make a killing. Like you may not be the biggest thing in the entire world. You're not going to go national, maybe, but you could do a really, really good job in your particular community. A lot of options available for that. If people just want to open up hey, I don't need to be huge. I just want to do this thing and I want to do it for these people. A lot of opportunity there. It still exists.
I guess there's because
yeah.
I was just thinking as you were saying that, Brian, I'm like, I may still say let's chill for a minute, especially right now. Not just with beer, but outside of beer, just society and the economy in general. I may be like, you know what? I'm gonna hold for a minute. I'm gonna hold for a minute. Let's see what goes down here. So, for one, it would be ridiculously expensive to open a brewery right now. So
probably
who knows?
It probably
man?
would
Who
be
knows?
spending, but yeah.
Well, Brian, let's get to some lighthearted news. And Miller is big beer, but they do some fun stuff, and we have enjoyed some of their little crazy things that they do a time or two here. But the latest one's pretty interesting, and boy, I would have loved to got my hands on this just for the absolute insanity of it. What is Miller up to these days, Brian?
I tried, and I think I missed the final opportunity for it, but I did. I always do. I like what. You know what? I do have a warm spot in my heart for Miller, despite them being macro, and every now and then they do annoy me with something that they do. But so to kick off a year-long marketing campaign they're doing, celebrating the intersection of music and Miller High Life, and of course the Noble Dive beer, which they embrace, and I love them for that. Miller High Life has released a limited edition beer-infused vinyl record. The record is called Dive Bar Sounds, and yes, it's a record that has actual beer in it. It's made of clear vinyl, so you can see the beer sloshing around inside of the record. And it's meant to be played. It's a real record, too. So the record apparently, and I haven't heard any of the music from it or any of the sounds from it, but it apparently opens with the sound of somebody entering a bar and a bottle of beer being opened by the bartender. It's then followed by a number of original songs for this album, as well as recordings of Miller High Life's classic 70s jingle, If You've Got the Time, apparently. You remember that one? Every time I hear it.
I do remember it. Nate probably does not, right, youngin'? What's it? If you've got the time, we've got the beer.
We've got the beer, Miller beer. Oh, it gets stuck in my head.
Good stuff.
Since reading this, it's been stuck in my head for like 2 days. Anyway, love it and hate it. Anyway, it's reported to be full of classic dive beer sounds, including the clink of bottles and the hum of neon signs. They didn't say anything about the drag of cigarettes, but I mean, we're talking real old school like dive bars, the actual like gnarly crackling of cigarettes as people were sucking them down, you could hear that. That was a thing that was in dive bars in the old times, but I'm guessing not so much now. As with all these limited edition marketing gags from Miller, it's very limited, and I think at this point it is sold out. By the time the show drops, it'll definitely be gone. But have no fear. After the sales are done, the full Dive Bar Sounds album will be released on streaming services, including Spotify, TouchTunes, which I've never heard of before. That must be a new streaming service.
I think they're
apparently it's big enough for Miller to release on, and also YouTube. So go look for Dive Bar Sounds. Go give it a listen. Because if you got the time, they have the beer and also the tunes. So
and the tunes there. They should have infused it with like stale cigarettes, like peanuts, like stale
peanut shells.
Yes. Yeah. So when it went around and when the needle moved around, it released some of those aroma chemicals into the air.
That would be amazing. Little pockets of like. Is that an old stubbed out cigarette? Is that a Camel?
It's like, what was that? Yeah, I believe that so Zach West chimed in here. TouchTunes are those bar jukeboxes.
Mm-hmm. So is that what those is? Okay,
I do.
Yeah,
okay,
I know what those are.
Now that he says that, I do remember seeing those there. Okay,
I didn't realize.
So you'll be able to
play
your dive bar sounds in your dive bar.
That's cool. I mean, I guess I had
That's
no
good
reason
stuff,
not to
man.
think that they'd be streaming. It makes sense that they would be, but I just
You didn't
assumed
think
they
they
were
had
like,
like 400 million, like, did you think they had like cassettes in there, Brian, or 8 tracks or
come
something?
on, they're up to CDs by now, not
Okay,
cassettes.
fair.
Pah.
Yeah, streaming, man. It's all straight. You can even, I saw this sometimes, somewhat, you have to be within a certain geographic area of the jukebox in order to be able to control that jukebox, the touch tones jukebox. And I saw a story sometime where a guy lived like across the street from somewhere. And he said when he got bored, he would go in and like the worst song ever, cue it up like 6 times or something.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that Mulaney
Oh
skit
yeah, Mulaney
or
skit.
the What's
Hello
New
Pussycat or
Pussycat.
whatever. What's
Yeah,
New
yeah.
Pussycat over and over
So
again.
I should
That's
look at that. I've
classic.
got a couple of restaurants not far from me. I should see if I've got access to any local
You
jukeboxes here.
probably could.
So
And hey, you're the one you're paying, so they're like,
yeah,
we're fine with
yeah.
terrorizing your
And I can't hear
location.
it. So
Yeah, exactly right.
do whatever. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, Brian, man, I don't want to get into politics on here. We all have our opinions. We've discussed it some offline. Things are crazy right now. But there's just a lot going on. I mean, it's tough not to be a little political, even if you're trying to avoid it. But immigration, big thing right
Yeah.
now. And
Yep.
Constellation Brand says that the current immigration policies are hurting their sales.
Yeah, I'm just reporting because that's what they're saying. And there's some interesting thinking going on here. It's kind of neat seeing an article that about beer and the policies in place. It isn't about the tariffs because it's mostly, from my perspective, it's people rehashing the same information about tariffs. It gets tedious, but this is interesting. So, according to Constellation Brand CEO Bill Newlands, the deportation threats and potential job losses have led to decreased spending in Hispanic populations. Why that's important is because that demographic represents roughly half of the company's beer sales. I had no idea. So Constellation Brands, they do Corona and Modelo, but the rate of Constellation beer purchases amongst Hispanic consumers has declined between 7 and 9% so far just this year. And apparently Corona and Modelo are taking the biggest hit here. So they are directly being impacted by this drop in spending. So to combat the losses, Constellation plans to better advertise Modelo beyond the Hispanic market, where it already has a very strong foothold. They speculate the immigration and employment issues could weigh on the company for years to come. So that said, the company is still growing, but they've lowered their anticipated growth estimates from to 0 to 3% instead of the 7 to 9%, which they expected, because I think they think they're going to lose a fair amount of their customers over this. So, and if these people are in fact deported, they probably will not be buying these beers anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah. We'll leave commentary out of this, but it's
wait. But is
just to
this
say,
how Bud Light becomes the number one beer in America again?
It
Is through
could
could
deportation?
be, man.
That's an
Because
Could
interesting
Modelo
be.
was the one
consideration.
who
Yeah.
unseated them. So
Wait
a minute. I thought all those Bud Light drinkers were mad at Bud Light. Didn't they all boycott it because they were
but
too woke?
that's yesteryear's issue. Like it depends.
Bud Light threw a couple of new spokesmen at them, and
Man,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Did they? I actually have
I
not
don't
been paying
know.
attention. I don't know. I don't really follow that. I knew that was the outrage, but it has been a while, and I think the people who left and went to another brand, like we've talked about, like they just adapted to another brand. The people that were they liked the beer and they were annoyed at them, I think by now they went back. I like Kid Rock or whoever is already.
He's over it.
He's over it. He's drinking it. He's serving it in his restaurant. So
yeah,
the people that were the people that still like really love that beer and that's the only beer for them, they're back to it. So I think whatever damage has been done. But it's interesting because I think that those two are competitive. It's possible Bud Light comes back out on top as a result of this. Would not have seen this coming, but here we are. It's interesting from that perspective without getting into all the political ramifications. So,
yeah. Crazy. Well, Brian, beer delivery, an issue in New York City. Beer delivery people are on strike.
Yeah, the beer delivery workers for Manhattan beer and beverage distributors in New York City have gone on strike, which means the supply of many popular beer, again, we're talking about Coors and Corona, not Coors, but Corona and Modelo, but also Coors, Sam Adams, that might run dry for thousands of restaurants and bars inside the city. Manhattan Beer has the exclusive distribution rights in New York City for many of these brands. In fact, it could reduce the supply of as many as 300 different alcoholic beverages if you include ciders and wines and some other stuff that they also have, like semi-exclusive, rights to, or maybe exclusive rights to it. So the workers are protesting Manhattan Beer's alleged push for them to exit their current pension plan, apparently in favor of something like a 401k or some other unspecified thing. The union claims the company's efforts to change the retirement plan is illegal, and they filed unfair labor practice complaints. I guess the company, from what I understand, went directly to people instead of working through the union to kind of influence them. And I don't know if that's illegal or not. I'm not a lawyer, but the union is not happy about that, and they're pushing for this distributor to add an additional, like, kicking like a $1.50 an hour per employee to add to save the current pension scheme. So anyway, how long it will last and what impact it'll have is hard to say. The CEO of the distribution company says he hopes for minimal disruption, and he claims that the strike is actually happening without the full vote of the entire union membership, which you don't know if how would I know if I could trust what he says versus what the union says? I don't know. But
we just never know, Brian.
We don't. Know. And if it stays ugly, there's going to be some really dry bars there in New York City. And anybody
that doesn't sound like a very good bar.
No, if anybody else who distributes anything else is going to have a windfall. So get ready with your alternate products in New York City.
Alternate products. Good stuff. Yes. Well, y'all, we have got to wrap it up for this week. Thanks again for coming along and hanging out with us. If you dig what we're doing here, we'd love for you to tell your friends to tune into the show. And if you really enjoy what we're doing, then you can support us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beer guys. We'll get you in our Discord chat. We'll send you out some swag, and everybody will have fun with it. But with that said, we hope that you all have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Clear.
We've done it again. Another show. Right.
We did it. Looks like we made it. If we've got the time, they've got
if you've got the time, we've got the beer. Miller beer.
Man, commercials and stuff were just really great, like in the 60s and 70s. We had some good stuff there, man. Good stuff.
Silly. Yeah.
Y'all, we're going to end the stream now. But yeah, again, thanks for hanging out. We appreciate it. And we will see y'all back here next week. Peace.